I stood there in the freezing November air, my suitcase by my side, still trying to process what had just happened. Thanksgiving night and my own family had thrown me out like garbage after I had supported them with $4,000 every month for 4 years. Their final demand for more money echoed in my ears along with their cruel words. The betrayal cut deeper than the winter wind. My wife Amanda squeezed my hand, her eyes reflecting a truth I had been blind to for years. Trước khi bắt đầu câu chuyện, hãy cho tôi biết các bạn đang xem từ đâu và nhấn subscribe nếu các bạn tin vào sức mạnh của sự tự tôn trọng và ranh giới lành mạnh trong gia đình. My name is Eugene, and at 35, I had built what most would consider a successful life. After years of hard work, my software development business had finally taken off, putting me in a comfortable 6-figure income bracket. I lived in a beautiful home in the suburbs with my amazing wife Amanda, who at 33 had been my rock through every challenge life had thrown at us. I came from what I would call a typical middle-class family. My father, Thomas, 62, had worked in management at a manufacturing plant for most of his life. My mother, Diane, 58, had been a part-time elementary school teacher. My younger brother, Jack, 30, had bounced between jobs since college, never quite finding his footing. My sister, Melissa, 28, worked as a marketing coordinator but spent more than she earned. Amanda and I had been married for 5 years, and she had always been the practical one between us. While I dreamed big and took risks with my business ventures, she kept our finances organized and our goals realistic. Her background in financial planning made her invaluable as both a wife and business partner. Together, we had built our company from a small startup working out of our garage to a respected firm with 15 employees. Our life had been on an upward trajectory until the pandemic hit 4 years ago. Like many businesses, my father's company struggled. Massive layoffs followed, and at 60, my father found himself unemployed for the first time in decades. My mother's part-time teaching income was not enough to cover their mortgage bills and support my siblings who were still partially dependent on them. When my father called me that night, his voice breaking as he explained their situation, I did not hesitate. I offered to help with $2,000 a month, but after calculating their expenses, I realized they needed more to maintain their standard of living. I increased my offer to $4,000 monthly, assuring them it was temporary until my father found new employment. Amanda and I sat down and reworked our budget. We postponed our plans to buy a vacation property and reduced our retirement contributions slightly. The numbers worked, and I felt good about helping my family through a difficult time. I had always been taught that family comes first, and now I had the means to put that value into action. The first few months were filled with gratitude. My parents called often to thank me, share updates about job applications, and tell me how my support was keeping them afloat. I felt proud that my success could provide a safety net for the people who had raised me. Amanda supported my decision but reminded me to set a timeline and clear expectations. About 6 months into our arrangement, the first troubling signs appeared. My brother Jack approached me about a business opportunity he wanted to pursue. He needed $15,000 to get started and promised to pay me back with interest once it took off. Against Amanda's quiet concerns, I transferred the money to his account, telling myself it was an investment in his future. Months passed, and whenever I asked Jack about the business, his answers grew increasingly vague. There were unexpected obstacles, market challenges, and always a need for more time. The promised repayment never materialized. Meanwhile, my sister Melissa began posting pictures on social media from expensive restaurants, showing off new designer clothes, and taking weekend trips with friends. When Amanda pointed this out, I defended Melissa, saying she deserved some happiness and probably saved up for those indulgences. The most concerning development came when my parents announced they had purchased a new car. Nothing extravagant, but certainly not the budget choice I expected given their financial situation. When I casually asked about it, my mother explained that their old vehicle was becoming unreliable and they needed something safe. It made sense on the surface, but Amanda questioned why they had not consulted us first. I began to notice a shift in our family conversations. Calls that once started with personal updates now quickly turned to money matters. My father would detail unexpected expenses or explain why my mother needed dental work not covered by insurance. Each call seemed to include a reminder of how much they depended on my support. A subtle unease grew within me. I found myself dreading their calls, sensing the financial requests that inevitably came. Yet I pushed these feelings aside, reminding myself that they were my family and this was temporary. I told myself that my discomfort was selfish compared to their genuine need. Amanda tried to discuss her concerns with me, pointing out patterns I refused to see. These conversations often ended with me accusing her of not understanding the meaning of family loyalty. Though she never said it directly, her expression clearly communicated that she thought I was being taken advantage of. Our disagreements on this issue created the first serious tension in our marriage. Despite my outward confidence, doubts began to creep in. Were my siblings really trying to improve their situations? Was my father putting genuine effort into finding employment? Why did it seem like their financial situation never improved, despite my substantial monthly contribution? I pushed these questions down, afraid of what honest answers might reveal. As we entered the second year of my financial support, the dynamics within my family shifted dramatically. What had begun as grateful acceptance of help during a crisis had evolved into something more troubling. The monthly $4,000 was no longer viewed as generous assistance, but as an expected entitlement. During a Sunday phone call, my mother casually mentioned that the cost of living had increased significantly. She wondered aloud if I had considered this when determining my monthly contribution. The implication was clear, though, never directly stated $4,000 was no longer enough. This conversation was followed by a late-night call from Jack. His business venture, which I had yet to see any concrete evidence of, was in trouble. He needed an additional $20,000 to save everything he had built. When I asked for a business plan or any documentation, he grew defensive, questioning my trust and reminding me that we were brothers. Not to be outdone, Melissa announced her intention to quit her job and pursue a career in social media influencing. She explained that with proper funding for equipment and wardrobe, she could make much more than her current salary. The funding she assumed would come from me. The most shocking request came from my parents themselves. They had begun looking at houses in a more upscale neighborhood, claiming their current home had too many maintenance issues. They wanted my help with a larger down payment to keep their mortgage payments manageable. When I reminded them of our original agreement, my father changed the subject. These escalating demands forced me to attempt setting boundaries. I scheduled a family dinner to discuss our financial arrangement face to face. I prepared a detailed explanation of my own financial commitments, including business expenses, mortgage savings for future children, and retirement planning. I hoped a visual representation would help them understand my limitations. The dinner was a disaster. My carefully prepared presentation was met with cold stares and defensive postures. Before I could finish explaining, my mother interrupted with tears in her eyes, asking if I was saying I did not love them anymore. My father shook his head disappointedly while Jack and Melissa exchanged knowing glances. What followed was an hour of emotional manipulation so effective it left me questioning my own values. My mother recalled sacrifices they had made for my education. My father mentioned how they had supported my early business attempts that failed. Jack and Melissa pointed out that I had more than enough money to help if I truly wanted to. I left that dinner having agreed to increase my monthly support to $5,000, despite knowing it would require Amanda and me to dip into our savings. The drive home was silent, with Amanda staring out the window, clearly upset, but choosing not to say what was on her mind. That night led to our first major argument as a married couple. Amanda did not hold back, calling my family manipulative and me a willing victim. She calculated that we had already given my family nearly $100,000 with no end in sight. The fight ended with me sleeping on the couch, both of us too stubborn to compromise. In the weeks that followed, a wall grew between us. Amanda stopped attending family gatherings, citing work commitments. I began hiding financial transactions from her, transferring extra money when my siblings called with emergencies. I justified these deceptions as necessary for peace, but each lie drove the wedge deeper between us. The breaking point came unexpectedly. I had stopped by my parents' house, unannounced, to drop off some specialty groceries my mother had mentioned wanting. Letting myself in with my key, I overheard Melissa on the phone in the kitchen. She was laughing, telling someone how she had convinced her sucker brother to pay for her upcoming vacation by claiming it was for a social media business opportunity. I froze in the hallway, blood rushing to my ears as I heard her continue. She described me as the family ATM, always good for cash when needed. She mentioned that our parents had given up looking for work because, in her words, why bother when Eugene pays the bills? The most painful revelation was about Jack. who had apparently used my investment not for business but to pay off gambling debts. I left without making my presence known, the grocery bags abandoned by the door. Driving aimlessly for hours, I could not bring myself to go home and admit to Amanda that she had been right all along. The truth was too painful to face. My family had been exploiting my generosity while mocking me behind my back. That night, I finally confessed everything to Amanda. Instead of the "I told you so," I expected she held me as I broke down. She explained that she had suspected something like this for months, but wanted me to see the truth for myself. Her concern had never been about the money, but about how the unhealthy dynamic was affecting me and our marriage. In that moment of vulnerability, I realized how close I had come to losing what truly mattered while trying to satisfy people who did not appreciate my sacrifices. Amanda and I stayed up all night talking honestly about our future and how to address the situation with my family. For the first time in months, I felt clarity about what needed to be done. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. There was something special about gathering around a table with loved ones, sharing food and gratitude. This year, Amanda and I arrived at my parents' house bearing an expensive bottle of wine and a homemade pumpkin pie, her grandmother's recipe. The moment we stepped through the door, I sensed something was different. The usual warmth was missing, replaced by an undercurrent of tension. My mother hugged me briefly before asking if I had brought the extra check I had promised for their winter heating bills. I had no recollection of such a promise, but said nothing, simply nodding noncommittally. The dining room table was set elegantly with the good china they rarely used. My father carved the turkey with precision, passing generous portions to everyone. On the surface, it appeared to be a normal family gathering, but the conversation felt forced and superficial. Melissa dominated the discussion with tales of her growing social media presence, conveniently omitting that her new camera equipment had been funded by my supposed business investment. Jack spoke vaguely about promising job prospects that never seemed to materialize into actual employment. Throughout the meal, I noticed my parents exchanging glances whenever money was mentioned. Amanda squeezed my knee under the table, her silent support keeping me grounded. I pushed the food around my plate, my appetite diminished by the knowledge of what they really thought of me. After dessert, my father suggested the men retire to the living room while the women cleaned up. Once seated with drinks in hand, he cleared his throat, a signal I had come to recognize as the preamble to a financial discussion. Thomas leaned forward, his voice taking on the enthusiastic tone he used when presenting what he considered a brilliant idea. He explained that he and my mother had found the perfect house in Oakwood Estates, a prestigious neighborhood across town. The property needed some work but had enormous potential. With my help on the $50,000 down payment, they could secure it before the market drove the price higher. I sat in stunned silence, mentally calculating that this amount, combined with what I had already provided, approached $250,000. When I did not immediately respond with enthusiasm, my father frowned. "We thought you would be excited for us," he said, disappointment evident in his voice. "After all, once it is fixed up, the property value will increase substantially." Finding my voice, I asked the question I should have asked years ago, and who exactly would benefit from that increased value? The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his seat, while my father's expression hardened. "What exactly are you implying, Eugene?" he demanded. Taking a deep breath, I explained that I could not provide the down payment. Furthermore, I had decided to reduce my monthly support gradually over the next 6 months before ending it completely. I outlined my plan to help them become financially independent through other means: career counseling for my father, financial planning assistance, and reasonable help with job placement. The explosion that followed was worse than I had anticipated. My father shot to his feet, face flushed with anger. His shouts brought my mother and Amanda rushing in from the kitchen. Upon hearing the situation, my mother burst into tears, accusing me of abandoning them after all they had done for me. Melissa entered the fray, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Jack stood silently by the fireplace, avoiding eye contact but occasionally nodding in agreement with the others. The verbal assault came from all directions, a lifetime of manipulative tactics concentrated into 20 devastating minutes. Amanda attempted to defend me, pointing out how generous I had been and suggesting that true family love should not come with a price tag. This turned their collective fury toward her, with my mother suggesting she was the one who had poisoned me against my own blood. My father delivered the final blow, his voice cold and deliberate. "If this is your decision, then you are no longer welcome in this house." Get out and take your wife with you." I stood frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. Thrown out of my family home on Thanksgiving for refusing to buy them a new house after years of financial support. Amanda took my arm, her touch bringing me back to reality. With dignity I did not feel, I walked to the coat closet and retrieved our jackets. No one moved to stop us as we headed for the door. The last thing I heard as we stepped into the cold night was Melissa's voice, unnaturally loud. "He will be back once he realizes what he has lost." The drive home was a blur. Rain began to fall, matching the storm of emotions within me. I pulled over after a few miles, unable to focus on the road through my tears. The full weight of what had happened crashed down on me. Years of manipulation, lies, and exploitation by the people I had trusted most. Amanda moved to the driver's seat, guiding us home safely. Once inside our house, the dam broke completely. I collapsed onto our couch, sobbing like I had not done since childhood. Amanda sat beside me, her presence steady and comforting. When I could finally speak again, the words poured out unfiltered. All the doubts I had suppressed, the red flags I had ignored, the warnings from Amanda I had dismissed. I admitted how deeply it hurt to discover that my family viewed me not as a son or brother, but as a source of income to be exploited. Amanda listened without interruption. When I finished, she took my hands in hers and spoke words that would change everything. "Eugene, true family does not treat each other this way," she said gently. "I have watched you pour your heart, soul, and bank account into people who take without gratitude and demand without shame. Your generosity deserves better recipients." She revealed that she had been documenting the financial assistance and broken promises for over 2 years, concerned that the situation was becoming destructive. She showed me spreadsheets detailing over $200,000 in direct support loans, never repaid, and emergency funds that coincided suspiciously with vacations and luxury purchases. Seeing it all laid out so clearly was both devastating and liberating. The fog of denial lifted, allowing me to see the relationship for what it truly was, a one-sided exchange that had been slowly draining not just my finances but my self-respect. In that moment of clarity, sitting with Amanda in our home while my biological family celebrated Thanksgiving without us, I made a decision that would redefine everything. The days following Thanksgiving were some of the hardest of my life. My phone remained silent, no apologetic calls from my family. Their absence confirmed what I already knew: their love had been conditional all along. Amanda and I spent the weekend in deep conversation about our path forward. We consulted with a financial advisor who helped us understand the full impact of my family's support on our own financial health. The numbers were sobering. We had depleted nearly 40% of our savings and delayed several important life goals. We also spoke with a therapist who specialized in family dynamics. She helped me recognize the patterns of emotional manipulation I had been subjected to and provided strategies for establishing healthy boundaries. The term financial abuse entered my vocabulary, giving name to what I had experienced. After much reflection, I decided on a response that would be both firm and compassionate. I would not simply cut my family off without offering alternative support. Instead, I crafted a plan that addressed their actual needs rather than their wants. I contacted a family counselor who agreed to facilitate sessions if my family was willing. I researched financial literacy programs and career counseling services for people in their age bracket. For Jack, I found information on gambling addiction, support groups, and job training programs. For Melissa, I compiled resources on building legitimate business skills and budget management. The hardest part was writing the letter that would accompany these resources. I spent days drafting, deleting, and revising, wanting to strike the right balance between boundary setting and compassion. The final version expressed my love for them while clearly stating that our relationship could no longer include financial dependency. I ended the letter with an offer I would pay for 6 sessions of family counseling, a comprehensive financial planning consultation, and career coaching for each of them. These services would replace the monthly cash transfer, giving them tools rather than temporary relief. The response was exactly what Amanda had predicted. My mother called crying and accusing me of being cruel. My father sent a terse email declining all offers of assistance that did not include direct financial support. Melissa blocked me on all social media platforms. Only Jack sent a brief text, "Give me some time to think about this." Despite the painful reactions, I held firm. Amanda and I redirected the money previously sent to my family into our own future, restoring our savings, increasing retirement contributions, and starting a fund for the children we hope to have. Weeks passed with minimal contact. I experienced a roller coaster of emotions, guilt, anger, grief, and occasionally liberating relief. The therapy sessions helped me work through these feelings, gradually replacing guilt with the understanding that I had done the right thing. 3 months after Thanksgiving, I received an unexpected call from Jack. His voice sounded different, more subdued, but somehow more authentic. He asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. At the cafe, I barely recognized my brother. Gone was the flashy watch and designer clothes, replaced by a simple button-down shirt and jeans. He looked healthier, his eyes clearer than I had seen in years. Jack did something I never expected. He apologized. He admitted to misusing the money I had given him, confessed to his gambling problem, and explained that my letter had been a wake-up call. He had been attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings for 2 months and had secured a steady job at a local tech company. Our conversation was honest in a way our interactions had not been for years. He asked thoughtful questions about my business, and Amanda showing genuine interest rather than looking for financial angles. Before we parted, he asked if my offer of career coaching was still available. It was the first time he had expressed interest in any of the non-cash assistance I had offered. Jack's step toward reconciliation created a small crack in the family standoff. 2 weeks later, my mother called, her tone less accusatory than before. She asked careful questions about the financial planning consultation, admitting that their situation had become untenable. My father was still resistant, but he had begun applying for jobs after months of inactivity. 6 months after being thrown out of my parents' home, I decided it was time to attempt rebuilding our relationship. I invited them to a neutral location, a private room at a restaurant, for a simple dinner. To my surprise, everyone accepted. The reunion was tense at first, with awkward small talk and careful avoidance of financial topics. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat and did something I had never seen him do. He apologized. Tears streamed down his weathered face as he acknowledged how poorly they had treated me and Amanda. My mother reached for my hand across the table, her eyes reflecting genuine remorse. She explained that losing my support had forced them to confront hard truths about their financial habits and expectations. They had sold their house and downsized to an affordable condo. My father had secured part-time work that suited his skills and age. Melissa was the last to speak. Her apology came wrapped in explanations and justifications, but I could see she was trying. She had maintained her marketing job and started a small side business within her means. The humility in her approach was new and encouraging. As we shared dessert, I realized we were experiencing something rare and valuable, an authentic reset of family dynamics. The financial dependency that had poisoned our relationships had been removed, allowing genuine connection to emerge. The tears that had been shed that night were healing ones, washing away years of unhealthy patterns and creating space for something new to grow. It was not perfect, and we would need time to rebuild trust, but it was a beginning founded on truth rather than transaction. In the year that followed, our family relationships transformed. Our gatherings became about shared experiences rather than financial expectations. Conversations deepened, focusing on personal growth and genuine support. We learned to help each other in non-monetary ways: childcare, home repairs, emotional support, and professional networking. The journey taught me that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for others is to stop enabling destructive patterns. My wife's clear vision had guided me through the darkest period, showing me that true support empowers rather than enables. Amanda and I grew stronger through the crisis. Our partnership deepened as we navigated the challenges together. We welcomed our first child, a daughter, with a renewed appreciation for healthy family dynamics and the legacy we wanted to create. I had learned that boundaries are not walls that separate us from others, but foundations upon which respectful relationships are built. Sometimes the tears of today bring the smiles and mutual respect of tomorrow. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt in the moment but led to healing in the long run? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Remember that establishing healthy boundaries is an act of love, both for yourself and for others. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to create healthy relationships in your own life.